The wolf finds a baby after a car crash, setting off a series of unexpected events. Amidst the chaos of the accident, a calm settles over the forest, interrupted only by the crash itself. The car, losing control due to a flat tire, rolls down Short Hill with a loud clamor of metal and glass. The unconscious driver is thrown from the vehicle, unnoticed amidst the turmoil, while smoke from the hood dislodges the baby's car seat. Drawn by the scent of blood and the cries of the infant, a wolf emerges from the woods. Sensing the urgency, it carefully frees the baby from the car seat and carries her deeper into the safety of the forest. Meanwhile, authorities are alerted by the woman's mobile app, and rescue expert James Watson rushes to the scene. Unable to reach the vehicle due to the flames, he spots the injured woman and waits for backup. As the woman is taken to the hospital, her repeated calls for Emma raise suspicions of another person involved in the crash. Despite initial doubts, the search for the baby intensifies. Returning to the scene, James follows drag marks and finds the empty car seat, a cut safety belt, and signs of the wolf's presence. Determined to find closure, he embarks on a rescue mission, holding on to hope for the baby's safety. James follows the wolf's trail until nightfall, but limited by his flashlight, he decides to wait until morning rather than risk losing time by going home. Setting up camp, he prepares for a sleepless night, concerned for little Emma's well-being despite the daunting thought of her being with a wolf after the accident. Despite the tough situation, there was a bit of hope because Emma's mom didn't have any serious spine or neck injuries, although her head was hurt badly. She was put in a coma to help her heal, which meant she didn't know about Emma's danger, sparing her from worrying. Meanwhile, Emma's dad wanted to help search, but he was needed to support his wife, leaving James to rescue the baby on his own. When morning came, James kept searching, despite the cold and the risk of running into wolves. He was driven by the need to find the child, knowing every second mattered to save Emma's life. With shaky hands and a racing heart, he cautiously looked in the den with his flashlight, worried about finding the baby and what condition she might be in. He couldn't shake the fear that this accident would leave deep scars on their hearts. It was tough, but he knew he had to keep going. The first den he checked was empty, with spiderwebs showing it hadn't been used by wolves for a while. Checking all the dens took up precious time he should have spent searching. Seeing these dens added more problems to an already bad situation. The overlapping paw prints made it hard to tell which were from the wolf he was following, but losing the trail wasn't an option. He went back to where he last saw the tracks, determined to keep following the wolf's path. As he continued, the place became more familiar. He'd been there before, even helped some teenagers once. Although the woods seemed easy to navigate, getting lost was a risk. Nearby cabins usually helped lost people, but not this time. The tracks led him to the mountains instead. It was surprising where the wolf was heading. The tracks led to a cabin usually used by park rangers and sometimes biologists. It was strange why a shy animal like a wolf would go near humans, especially since the cabin had been empty for months. James hurried as he got closer to the clearing where the cabin was. He was ready for whatever he might find. What he saw on the porch changed his view completely. He thought he might find a scary wolf, but instead, there was one peacefully sleeping in the sun, with a tiny baby beside it. The baby wasn't crying, which worried James. He wanted to get her help, but first, he needed to separate her from the wolf, who was holding her as gently as a puppy. Then something strange happened. When the wolf saw James, it stood up. James got ready to defend himself, but it seemed unnecessary. The wolf looked at the baby, then calmly left the porch and walked away. It seemed like the wolf just wanted to reunite the baby with other people, seeking help for her. Looking back on everything, it was surprising to realize that the wolf was never a danger. Instead, it had put the baby's safety first, taking her away from the burning car, maybe thinking her mom wouldn't make it, and trying to find help for her. Pausing at the edge of the forest, the wolf looked at the baby for a moment before leaving. James quickly went to the baby. Even though it was cold outside, the baby stayed warm, probably because of the wolf nearby. The wolf's kindness was amazing, but it didn't mean the baby was completely safe. She had bruises from the car accident, so James worried about any hidden injuries. They needed to get her to the hospital fast. Suddenly, the baby stopped breathing. With no time to lose, James gave her mouth-to-mouth, glad he didn't have to do chest compressions and risk hurting her more because of his size. After a few breaths, the baby started breathing again. Not taking any risks, James called for help and took the baby to a nearby open space. As they walked, he noticed the wolf following them, still looking out for the baby. Having a wolf tagging along might have been scary, but strangely, it made James feel less alone in caring for the baby. Even though James had saved many lives before, he'd never been so scared as when he held the fragile baby. It was a huge relief when paramedics arrived by helicopter, and James could hand the baby over for urgent medical care. Although she had some injuries, they could be fixed, thanks to both James and the wolf. Days later, the mom woke up from her coma and saw her husband holding Emma. Seeing the baby safe and happy was a huge relief. The family was so grateful to James for helping their daughter that they met up with him to say thank you. Months later, they went back to the cabin where James found the wolf and baby. They saw the wolf again, silently acknowledging the bond they shared in saving Emma.